The metal detector's shriek pierced the quiet forest air. Mike Garrett thought he'd struck gold. Instead, he found a child's thermos, battered, half-buried, and clinging to 14 years of silence. Moments later, a retired K-9 named Ranger stopped dead in his tracks, teeth bared, tail stiff. Whatever was buried under that oak tree, it wasn't done screaming. The sun had barely cleared the ridgeline when Officer Jenna Brooks pulled her patrol SUV into the clearing. The pine trees stood like sentinels around the dig site, their shadows long and watchful. She stepped out, boots crunching over dried needles and frost-hardened grass, while her partner, Ranger, leapt from the back seat with practiced ease. Ranger wasn't your average German shepherd. He'd served nearly a decade with search and rescue. Bones broken, teeth chipped, medals earned. He was supposed to be retired now, chasing tennis balls and snoring through Netflix reruns at Jenna's cabin. But when the call came in about skeletal remains and a child's thermos found in the woods, she'd looked in his eyes and knew he wasn't done yet. A uniformed deputy approached. "You're with K-9?" he asked, motioning toward the yellow tape stretched between tree trunks. "Officer Brooks," Jenna said. "And this is Ranger." The deputy nodded and pointed toward the tree. "Thermos was buried just over there. Blogger found it with a metal detector. Almost didn't report it. Thought it was junk until he saw the stickers, butterflies, faded, flaking, but still visible against the scratched stainless steel. It had once belonged to a child, someone who took the time to decorate it, who had dreams and a family." Jenna crouched next to it as evidence techs dusted it clean. Ranger stood behind her, hackles slightly raised. "Got something, boy?" He lowered his head to the ground, nostrils flaring. Then suddenly, he growled low and guttural, not the bark of a dog finding food or a toy. This was something older, deeper. His paws scraped the earth near the roots of the oak. The crime scene team exchanged glances. "You mind giving him a run?" one asked. Jenna clipped a long lead onto Ranger's harness. "Find it," she said softly. He took off like a shot, nose sweeping in arcs, the leash taut behind him. The pine forest swallowed them quickly. Jenna followed at a jog, heart pounding. This wasn't like him. He was focused, agitated, purposeful. He stopped near a rotted log, barked once, then began to dig. Beneath the topsoil was a piece of green fabric, gingham, torn, but unmistakably from a child's dress. Jenna's breath caught. She keyed her radio. "Unit 32, possible secondary article recovery. Flag this location. I'm marking it now." They were no longer looking at a missing persons case. This was a graveyard. Later that day, back at the ranger station turned command center, Jenna sipped bitter coffee while the tension in the room swelled like storm clouds. The thermos had already triggered matches in a national database, cold cases from over a decade ago. 2 little girls, Emma and Sophie Morrison, vanished from a family picnic. No witnesses, no leads, only heartache. Detective Harrison addressed the gathered team. "We're treating this as a homicide. One of the girls, Sophie, has been identified by dental remains. Her sister, Emma, is still missing. All hands, no red tape. We search until we find her or find out what happened." Jenna felt her throat tighten. She glanced at Ranger, now lying by her feet, eyes still scanning the room. He was waiting for his next cue. And something told her he already knew this wouldn't end clean. Meanwhile, back at the old holiday home, abandoned for over a decade, June and Marcus Morrison stood in silence. The house hadn't changed. Dust-coated family photos still sat on the mantel, including the last one taken of the girls, Emma, sticky with melted popsicle, Sophie, missing her front teeth. Their daughters had played here, laughed here, disappeared here. Now one had been found, and the other, God help them. Marcus turned to June. "You sure about staying here? We could get a motel in town." No, she said, her voice hollow. If Emma is out there, I need to be close. Just then, headlights cut through the trees. Jenna stepped out of the cruiser, Ranger close beside her. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, I'm Officer Brooks. I'm heading up the K-9 unit, assisting with the investigation. Ranger walked toward the porch. As he crossed the threshold, he stopped cold. Then he whined, a soft, sorrowful sound that made June's chest ache. He knows, June whispered. He knows something happened here. Jenna nodded. He remembers things people don't. Senses shifts in spaces that feel wrong. If it's okay, I'd like to let him sweep the house. Please, Marcus said. Anything that helps. As Ranger padded through the living room, he paused at the back door, then moved to the kitchen. He sat in front of the fridge, staring at a child's drawing pinned by alphabet magnets, a crude crayon figure labeled Soph. The house had been waiting, too. That night, Jenna uploaded Ranger's camera footage to her laptop. Every search run was recorded, standard procedure for transparency. But tonight, as she watched, she caught something that made her pause. At 11:06 a.m. during the search, Ranger had stopped dead, not at the tree, not at the ribbon site, but near the northern forest line, an area excluded from the original search 14 years ago. The footage showed him staring, frozen, tail stiff, then straining against the leash. And someone had been watching, a man just out of frame, pale cap, gray uniform, a park ranger, looking straight at Ranger and slowly stepping backward. Jenna rewound it 3 times. Who the hell are you? She picked up her phone, scrolling through the contact list for the volunteer coordinator. Hey, can you send me the full roster of Rangers who worked the Morrison case back in '09? The voice on the other end hesitated. You thinking of Tom Mitchell? I am. Now, if you're as invested in stories where animals help crack the uncrackable, consider subscribing to our channel, True Stories, Real Heroes, and a whole lot of heart. By morning, the search grid had expanded, but Jenna didn't wait for daylight. At 5:12 a.m., she returned to the oak tree with Ranger. Show me, boy, she whispered. He didn't hesitate. He took off into the darkened forest, paws light on the frost-hardened earth, breath steaming in the cold. No hesitation, no doubt. Then he stopped at the edge of the so-called unstable terrain Mitchell had insisted was off-limits. Ranger pawed at the dirt, whined, then barked once. It wasn't a call for backup. It was a warning. Something had lived here. Something had died here. And someone had lied. The morning light filtered through the treetops like stained glass. Frost clung to the pine needles as fog coiled low over the ground. The search grid was alive with movement, volunteers in bright orange vests, deputies marking GPS coordinates, and cadaver dogs working in slow, deliberate zigzags through the underbrush. But Ranger wasn't zigzagging. He was locked onto something, nose low, tail straight, ears forward, focused. Officer Jenna Brooks moved behind him, her gloved hand steady on the lead. The ground beneath their boots was part of the northern ridge, dense, rocky, and supposedly off-limits. Supposedly, Ranger thinks otherwise, Jenna muttered, stepping over a fallen branch. The terrain was rough but walkable, nothing like the unstable sinkholes and abandoned mine shafts that Park Ranger Mitchell had described to the search teams. As they moved deeper into the forest, Ranger slowed. Then he stopped. A clearing opened before them, silent, untouched, no marker tape, no boot prints, no trampled grass. A circle of ancient trees surrounded it, as if nature itself was protecting whatever secret it held. Ranger whined. Jenna crouched. What you got, buddy? He sniffed the base of a gnarled stump, then pawed at the dirt. She knelt beside him, brushing away leaves. A piece of fabric, pink, frayed, stained. Ranger sat down abruptly, his signal for a scent match. Jenna's heart rate spiked. Unit 32 to command. I've got a possible find in Sector N7. Request evidence team and marker flags. Copy, 32. You're outside the designated grid. That's Northridge territory. Stand by. I'm not standing by, she said, cutting them off. My K9 has a hit. I'm sending coordinates now. By the time Detective Harrison arrived, Ranger was pacing the perimeter of the clearing like he was guarding something ancient. This area was redlined on the old search maps, Harrison said, checking his tablet. Mitchell's notes called it structurally compromised. Jenna shook her head. There's nothing compromised about it. No sinkholes, no collapsed shafts. It's solid ground. They both looked toward the tree line where a small group of volunteers, including Mitchell, were coordinating the next sweep. He was showing them paths on a laminated map, gesturing animatedly. Is it just me? Jenna asked. Or does he always find a way to be near the decisions? Harrison glanced at her. You think he's hiding something? I think he's trying too hard to control everything, and for some reason, he didn't want anyone near this clearing. Ranger growled softly, eyes locked on Mitchell in the distance. At the old holiday home, June Morrison stood in the kitchen, staring at the refrigerator. Emma's crayon drawings were still pinned there, sunshine houses, stick figures labeled Mama and Dada, and one labeled Soph. June couldn't move. Every piece of paper, every childish scrawl felt like a heartbeat frozen in time. Marcus stepped in behind her, holding his phone. Harrison just called. They found another fabric sample, pink this time. June turned, her face pale. Emma? They're not sure yet, but Jenna's K9 made the find. That dog, she whispered. The one who found Sophie's thermos. Same one. She grabbed her coat. I want to see the spot. Jenna met them at the clearing's edge. Ranger sat at attention beside her. He's been on edge all morning, she told June. This area, it's different. He's alert, not afraid, but wary. He knows it matters. June stepped into the clearing and exhaled slowly. We used to bring the girls here. Not often, maybe once or twice, but Emma loved this spot. Said the trees looked like guardians. Jenna's gaze shifted. That's not in your original statement. No, June said softly. No one ever asked about the Northern Trail. Mitchell said it was too dangerous to check. They both turned as Harrison approached, holding a bagged piece of evidence, a pink ribbon. June reached out and touched the plastic. Emma wore those every Sunday. Her hair was so fine, I'd have to braid it just to keep it out of her eyes. Do you recognize this specific one? Harrison asked. No, she said, her voice trembling. But it's hers. Or it was. That night, the command center buzzed with tension. Search patterns were redrawn. Ranger had officially blown open the Northern Territory with his discovery. Volunteers questioned why that area had been left untouched. Mitchell deflected. Safety protocols. It's just standard procedure. The soil sample report? No report exists, Jenna interrupted. I checked the archive. No geological scans. Just your handwritten notes. Mitchell bristled. I was protecting people from getting hurt. You sure that's all you were protecting? She asked, locking eyes with him. Before he could respond, Harrison stepped in. Enough. Officer Brooks, come with me. They retreated to a corner of the briefing room. Careful, Harrison warned. I'm watching Mitchell, too. But unless we get something solid, we don't confront him. Jenna glanced down. Ranger was at her feet, eyes locked on Mitchell across the room. I don't need a warrant, she said, to trust a dog with better instincts than half this department. The next morning, a civilian volunteer named Carol approached Jenna nervously. Can I talk to you in private? Jenna led her outside to the porch. Carol spoke quietly. Mitchell told our team not to waste time in the north. Said it was a distraction. But the thing is, last night I saw him walking toward that sector alone after dark. He had a flashlight and a duffel bag. Why didn't you report it? I didn't want to accuse someone, but it felt off. Now I can't stop thinking about it. Jenna squeezed her shoulder. Thank you. You did the right thing. Back inside, she turned to Harrison. We need eyes on Mitchell now. Later that afternoon, Harrison assigned a drone unit to scan the forest. Within 30 minutes, they picked up something unusual, an entrance partially covered by camo netting just north of the ridgeline, not far from where Ranger found the ribbon. Let's move, Jenna said. They hiked in fast, 4 officers, 2 K9s, weapons holstered. As they neared the site, Ranger surged forward, barking sharply. Jenna froze. Beneath the netting was a concrete storm bunker, reinforced, old. The padlock was new. Command, she radioed. We've got a sealed structure in the ridge. Unknown contents, gaining entry now. Harrison pried open the door with bolt cutters. The hinges groaned. A musty, sour air rushed out. Jenna descended first, flashlight slicing through the dark. The narrow steps led into a room that reeked of damp wood and bleach, a mattress, shelves of food, rope, leather restraints, and in the corner, a single pink sneaker. Jenna choked. Ranger, search. He moved slowly, nose down, tail low, stepping lightly. Then he sat in the center of the room, another signal. He'd found where someone had lived or died. Above ground, June waited near the patrol SUV, clutching a scarf, the pink one Emma used to drag around like a security blanket. She looked up as Harrison returned, face pale. What did you find? She asked. He hesitated. A shelter. Evidence of long-term use, but no person. Not yet. June looked over at Ranger, now standing near the bunker entrance. He was still, not sniffing, not barking, waiting. She walked over and knelt in front of him. You remember her, don't you? She whispered. Ranger leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently to hers. And then, in a quiet moment thick with grief, determination, and hope, he looked toward the trees and started walking. The ridge had never felt this quiet. Officer Jenna Brooks stood at the edge of the storm bunker entrance, one hand on Ranger's harness, the other gripping a flashlight that barely sliced through the gloom below. Behind her, the command team cordoned off the area. Evidence markers dotted the perimeter like graves waiting to be filled. Jenna exhaled slowly. She'd been in war zones and wildfires, but this bunker was worse. This was planned. This was personal. Inside, the walls were lined with makeshift shelves, canned food, water jugs, plastic bins labeled with masking tape, linens, girl toys, hygiene. The kind of details you only found in someone preparing to keep a person, not just hide them. At the far wall sat the pink sneaker, and beside it, a child's pillow embroidered with the name Emma. Ranger sat beside it, unmoving, watching, guarding. Do you think she was kept here? Detective Harrison asked, stepping into the low light beside her. She wasn't just kept, Jenna said. She lived here. Harrison nodded grimly. We found fingerprints, mostly female, small, one partial adult male. No matches yet, but we're running it. Jenna bent down to touch the pillow. She might still be alive. And whoever did this, Harrison said, might be closer than we think. Later that afternoon, the Morrison home buzzed with movement, family, neighbors, media vans parked just far enough away to be legal, but close enough to capture emotion. June sat on the porch swing, scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, mug of untouched tea in her hands. 14 years, she said quietly to Marcus, who stood beside her. 14 years, and she might have been right under our feet. Marcus swallowed hard. They said they found rope, a bed, toys. She was just a baby. Jenna approached slowly, Ranger beside her. His tail wagged once when he saw June. He remembers me, June whispered. I can feel it. Jenna nodded. Dogs don't forget the people connected to their work. Especially not one like Ranger. Is she still here? June asked, voice shaking. I don't know, Jenna admitted. But we've got a lead. A possible link. Marcus looked up. What kind of lead? Jenna hesitated. We've been reviewing old photos taken before the girls disappeared, cookouts, holidays, birthdays. Ranger's handler before me flagged something strange. A man. What kind of man? In the background. Always near the girls. Never front and center. Never mentioned in any official report. But there again and again. Marcus looked confused. Family friend? Maybe. Or maybe not. Jenna held out her phone, scrolling through images. June gasped. That's Daniel, she said. Daniel Morrison had always been the kind of man who blended in, polite, soft-spoken, helpful at family events, the kind of uncle who brought extra gifts at Christmas and offered to babysit whenever needed. After the girls disappeared, he was there, supportive, devastated, relentless in his own searches. He also never married again after his divorce. He bought 5 acres of land just outside the county line and built a storm bunker. Has he been back? June asked suddenly. To the house. Marcus frowned. I mean, he's here now. He showed up last night. Said he wanted to help with the search. Jenna stiffened. Where is he now? Out getting supplies, Marcus replied. Said he'd be back by dinner. Jenna keyed her radio. Dispatch, I need a vehicle check on Daniel Morrison. Black Ford Explorer, North Carolina plates. Last seen heading eastbound from Forest County. Copy, Officer Brooks. Jenna turned to June. Has he been acting strange? June looked uncomfortable. He was always quiet, thoughtful. But yesterday, I saw something in his trunk, rope, tarps, feminine hygiene products. He said he was donating them to a shelter. Has he ever owned a dog? Jenna asked suddenly. Yes. German Shepherd named Scout. He had him for years. Did he ever mention being allergic to dogs? June frowned. No. Why? Jenna stood. Because yesterday, Daniel told one of our handlers not to bring a canine near him. Said he was severely allergic. Ranger let out a sharp bark. That evening, as shadows lengthened and search teams returned to base, Daniel's Explorer rolled back into the driveway. Ranger lifted his head before the tires even crunched gravel. Jenna stepped out from the side of the house, arms crossed. Daniel paused, holding a shopping bag of bottled water and protein bars. Officer Brooks, he said pleasantly. Back again. Big day, she said smoothly. We expanded the grid. Good, Daniel replied. Anything promising? Jenna stepped closer. Mind if I ask what you were doing yesterday around 10 p.m.? Daniel raised a brow. Getting gas? Why? Because a volunteer spotted someone matching your description headed toward the northern ridge with a flashlight and duffel bag. Daniel's grip on the bag tightened. I was at a gas station. We're pulling footage now, Jenna said evenly. Daniel's eyes flicked to Ranger, who was staring up at him, tail stiff, nose twitching. Jenna caught it. The dog's body language shifted. He was no longer curious. He was on alert. I should get these inside, Daniel said, turning. Of course, Jenna said. Just one more thing. He stopped. You ever spend time at the bunker? Daniel blinked. What bunker? The one buried on your property. His smile didn't falter. That old thing? Haven't used it in years. Full of mold. Probably dangerous by now. We checked, Jenna said. Looked brand new. Stocked, actually. A muscle jumped in Daniel's jaw. Jenna stepped forward. She was there, Daniel. We know. His hand twitched, and Ranger growled. Within minutes, Daniel was in a patrol car. He hadn't confessed yet, but his behavior, the supplies, and a match to his fingerprints found in the bunker were enough to hold him. Jenna rode back with Harrison, her mind spinning. Do you think he moved her? She asked. Harrison nodded slowly. It's possible. We checked the utility bills for Daniel's house. Spikes every month in electricity. Enough to power a small residence. But the bunker had no power. Exactly, Harrison said. So where was the power going? That night, Jenna returned to the clearing with Ranger. He was restless, pacing the edges of the bunker as if something still called from beneath. You think she's out there? She asked quietly. Still alive. He turned and looked at her, not with doubt, but purpose. Jenna crouched beside him. Let's find her, boy. Ranger barked once and sprinted into the trees. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like wet bark and tension. Ranger darted through the pine trees like a ghost. His breath puffed in rhythmic bursts, his paws silent over damp forest floor. Officer Jenna Brooks followed, heart hammering, flashlight beam bouncing in front of her. Behind them, two deputies hustled to keep up, their radios crackling with static and urgency. They weren't running toward danger. They were running toward hope because Ranger had caught the scent. Again, after 14 years of silence, someone was finally listening. Less than 24 hours earlier, Daniel Morrison had cracked, not completely, but enough. The initial interrogation hadn't yielded a confession, just calculated calm, a few shrugs, and vague answers. But his body language betrayed him. Every time Harrison mentioned the bunker or the pink sneaker, Daniel flinched. When Jenna brought up the fingerprints inside the food bins, he went pale. But it wasn't until they played the drone footage, Ranger zeroing in on the northern clearing, that something changed. Daniel's jaw clenched. He stared at the screen longer than necessary, then asked for a lawyer. That was the moment Jenna knew he hadn't acted alone, and the girl Emma might still be alive. Ranger had led them in a wide loop through the northern edge of the forest, his nose to the ground, weaving between trees like he was reading a story written in scent. Then, just before sundown, he stopped, not like before, not the sit-and-wait of a detection hit. This was different. He stood stock still, body angled toward a line of brush that led up to the base of a shallow hill, a hill that didn't appear on the topographical map, a hill that to any other eye just looked like nature. Jenna stepped beside him. The hair on the back of her neck rose. The terrain was too even, too symmetrical, like something had been buried. "Command, this is Unit 32, she said into her radio. I've got a K9 fix on a covered structure roughly 200 yards north-northwest of the known bunker. Request immediate forensic and structural team. Possible secondary holding location. Copy that, 32. Team en route." She turned to Ranger. "You sure about this, buddy?" He didn't move. Not even a blink. Within the hour, floodlights illuminated the site. Officers surrounded the perimeter while engineers and structural experts began probing the hill with ground-penetrating radar. The results were undeniable. There was a void underneath, rectangular, reinforced, and recently sealed. "We're dealing with a second bunker," one tech said. "Larger, purpose-built." Jenna's stomach turned. It wasn't just a one-time act. This had been planned. June and Marcus were escorted to the ranger station just after midnight. Neither had slept. They sat in the briefing room with Detective Harrison, eyes puffy but sharp. Jenna entered, muddy boots and all, with Ranger close behind. "We found another structure," she said. June's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God." "It's sealed," Jenna continued. "But the GPR shows electrical wiring and a second air vent system. Whoever built it didn't want it found." "Is she?" Marcus couldn't finish the question. "We don't know yet," Harrison said carefully. "But we're preparing to open it now. If Emma's in there, we'll get her out safely." June looked at Ranger. "He found it." Jenna nodded. "He never gave up." Ranger laid his head in June's lap. Dawn broke pale and cold. The team stood at the edge of the hill as the cutting tools screamed against concrete. Sparks flew. Ranger paced behind the barricade, restless, ears pinned, eyes locked on the bunker door. Inside, a series of mechanisms clicked as the final lock was severed. With a loud creak, the hatch opened. A blast of stale, recycled air pushed upward, and then silence. A spotlight pierced the dark interior. The walls were clean. The floors were smooth cement. And in the back corner, sitting cross-legged on a mattress, was a girl, no longer 4 years old, but not quite 18 either. She shielded her eyes against the sudden light, her voice small and confused. "Is Uncle Danny back?" Jenna rushed forward. "Emma," she said gently. The girl blinked, unsure. "Who are you?" she whispered. "It's okay," Jenna said, kneeling down. "We're here to help. You're safe now." Ranger pushed past the barricade, crawled into the bunker, and approached her slowly. The girl's face changed. She stared at the dog with something between fear and wonder. "I know you," she whispered. "You came before. You were in my dream." Ranger wagged his tail once and sat down at her feet. The medics moved quickly, lifting Emma gently onto a stretcher. She was pale, malnourished, and visibly confused, but compliant. She kept asking about Uncle Danny, where he was, if he'd be mad. At the hospital, a trauma team began assessing her condition. She'd been kept in isolation so long that her vocabulary hadn't fully matured. Her mannerisms were childlike. Her trust misplaced. The lead psychiatrist, Dr. Adler, spoke to June and Marcus in the waiting area. "She shows signs of extreme emotional conditioning," he said. "Stockholm Syndrome is likely. She associates Daniel with safety, even as she fears the outside world." "Does she remember us?" June asked, her voice cracking. "She remembers the song," Dr. Adler said. "What song?" "The lullaby, Mockingbird. She said a lady in her dreams sings it. A lady who smells like flowers." June gasped. "That was me. I used to sing it to her every night." Dr. Adler nodded. "It's buried deep, but it's there." Marcus gripped her hand. "Then she's still in there." Back at the station, Daniel cracked. When confronted with video footage of Emma being extracted from the second bunker, he fell apart. "It wasn't supposed to be this way," he muttered. "She was safe. I protected her." "You stole her," Harrison growled. "You took her from her family. You buried Sophie like trash." Daniel shook his head, tears running freely now. "Sophie wouldn't stop crying. She didn't understand. She tried to run." He paused. "Then she hit her head. I didn't mean to." "You planned it all," Harrison snapped. "The second bunker, the fake trail, the thermos with the butterfly stickers. You left it there on purpose, didn't you?" Daniel didn't answer. Jenna stepped in. "You thought if they found Sophie, they'd stop looking for Emma. You thought you were smarter than everyone." "She was my angel," Daniel whispered. "She loved me." "No," Jenna said coldly. "She was a prisoner." That evening, June was allowed into Emma's hospital room. Monitors beeped softly. The girl was curled up on her side, staring out the window. Her arms were thin, her wrists bore faint scars from years of restraint. June sat beside her and hummed softly, the same song. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Emma turned slowly. Her eyes searched June's face. "I know that song," she whispered. "The flower lady sings it." June reached out. Emma didn't pull away. "You're not a dream," the girl murmured. "No, sweetheart," June said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mom." Emma blinked. Then, for the first time, her lips trembled, and she reached forward. Ranger, lying at the foot of the bed, thumped his tail once and closed his eyes. The courtroom was packed, not just with family or press, but strangers, parents holding their kids' hands tighter, retired detectives who remembered the original case, and local teachers who once taught Sophie and Emma Morrison. Even the courtroom sketch artist couldn't keep up with all the emotions in the room. And at the front, sitting quietly beneath the defense table, was a German shepherd named Ranger. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He didn't need to. His presence said everything. 3 months had passed since Emma had been rescued. In that time, the world had changed. Daniel Morrison was no longer the helpful uncle or soft-spoken volunteer. He was now the monster beneath the floorboards, a headline, a cautionary tale, and a symbol of how the most dangerous predators often wear familiar faces. The media called it the Shadow Bunker case. But for June and Marcus Morrison, it wasn't about headlines. It was about the quiet, daily fight to help their daughter feel real again. Emma's recovery was slow. Her body was healing, nutrients, rest, physical therapy. But her mind was a different story. Some days she was talkative, even playful, watching old cartoons and humming to herself. Other days, she refused to speak, rocking gently in the corner of her room, asking when Uncle Danny was coming back. She couldn't yet call June Mom without flinching. And when Marcus tried to hug her, she stiffened like a soldier under threat. But she always welcomed one thing, Ranger. Every Thursday, Jenna brought Ranger to the hospital for supervised visits. At first, Emma just watched from across the room, her eyes darting every time he moved. But within weeks, she was feeding him treats, brushing his coat, whispering things in his ear that she wouldn't say to anyone else. "He's not like the other dogs," she told Dr. Adler once. "He remembers." "Remembers what, sweetheart?" the psychologist asked gently. "He remembers the dark." In court, Daniel sat like a ghost of himself, gaunt, pale, wrists cuffed. The once clever eyes that danced with manipulation now avoided every gaze. The prosecution didn't have to dramatize. The evidence spoke for itself: the 2 bunkers, the medical records, the supplies, the forged documents, the fingerprints, the blood trace from Sophie found beneath the first bunker's soil, and the video footage, Ranger's camera, showing his discovery in real time, his alerts, his hits, his unwavering instinct. A retired FBI profiler took the stand to explain how rare it was for a predator to keep a victim that long without being caught. This wasn't improvisation, the agent said. It was architecture, psychological, emotional, and physical. Jenna sat behind June and Marcus, Ranger curled at her feet. "You doing okay?" she asked quietly. June nodded, eyes never leaving Daniel. "I need to hear it from him." On the 3rd day of testimony, Daniel took the stand in his own defense. The room went still. He tried to sound rational, his voice soft, filled with twisted logic. "I didn't hurt her," he insisted. "I gave her structure, a safe place. She smiled for me. She sang. She wanted to stay." June gripped Marcus's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. "She was 4, the prosecutor snapped. "She didn't know any better." "She knew I loved her," Daniel muttered. "Did you love Sophie, too?" the attorney asked, stepping closer. Daniel hesitated. Sophie, she was too loud. She wouldn't stop crying. I warned her. I told her to calm down. She ran. She forced my hand. Gasps filled the room. And in the second row, Ranger stood, not barking, not growling, just watching, like he understood every word. After court adjourned, the judge allowed a brief moment for victim impact statements. June stood slowly, her voice shaking at first, then strengthening with every sentence. For 14 years, we woke up every day not knowing. Did she eat? Was she warm? Was she alive? And now we know. We know what you did. We know how you fooled us all. But here's what you didn't take from us: hope. We found our daughter, and she will heal. She looked at Ranger. And we found him, the one who never gave up, who knew what our hearts were too afraid to say out loud, that she was still out there. The courtroom stood as she walked back to her seat, not in protest, but in silent respect. That night, back at home, Emma sat on the floor of her old bedroom, now updated, repainted, softer. The walls were pale yellow, the window curtains patterned with tiny sunflowers. A gentle diffuser hummed on the nightstand, releasing the scent of lavender. In her lap, Ranger rested his head. She ran her fingers over his ears. "Do you remember the birds?" she asked quietly. "Uncle Danny said we'd go see them. We never did." Ranger blinked slowly. "I think he lied about the birds," Emma added. June watched from the hallway, heart aching. But Emma wasn't crying. That was something. The following week, the Forest County Police Department held a small ceremony. A plaque was unveiled honoring Ranger's years of service, particularly his role in solving the Morrison case. "Some officers wear boots," the chief said. "Others wear badges, but this one, he wears fur and heart." Ranger, wearing his black K-9 vest and shiny service medal, sat beside Jenna, tongue lolling, tail wagging with quiet pride. After the ceremony, a local reporter approached Jenna. "What's next for Ranger?" She smiled. "Retirement for real this time." But Ranger wasn't done just yet. A month later, he received a special invitation, one that wasn't part of police protocol: Emma's birthday, her first one celebrated outside the bunker. The house was quiet, intimate, no candles, no big crowds, just family, cupcakes, and quiet tears that no one apologized for. Emma unwrapped a soft stuffed animal, another German shepherd, and held it in her arms. Ranger walked over, sniffed it, then licked her cheek. She giggled, and then, for the first time, she looked at June and whispered, "Mom." June froze, then broke into tears. Emma didn't shrink away this time. She leaned in. Jenna stood outside with Ranger that night, the porch light casting a warm glow on the lawn. Crickets chirped. A light breeze stirred the trees. "You did it," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. He leaned into her hand. For a moment, they stood there, partners, survivors, witnesses to a truth that had nearly been lost forever. And when she opened the car door, he didn't rush in. He turned back one last time, looked at the house, and let out a low, satisfied sigh, as if to say, "It's done. They're safe. Let's go home." It took 4 months before Emma Morrison asked to go outside, not to the park, not to the store, just outside to sit in the sun. June didn't cry, not in front of her. But when Emma settled into the porch swing with a blanket around her shoulders and Ranger's head in her lap, June excused herself and wept quietly in the kitchen. Progress wasn't a straight line. It was slow, uneven, and full of echoes. But that swing, that sunshine, that moment, that was everything. The trial had ended with a life sentence, no parole, no appeals. Daniel Morrison would spend the rest of his days behind steel bars, his name etched into every nightmare Emma would carry and every news article that reminded the world how close evil can hide. But it wasn't about him anymore. He had stolen enough. Now it was about rebuilding, brick by brick, breath by breath. Emma started therapy twice a week, sometimes with Dr. Adler, sometimes with animals. Ranger was the only constant. He came to every session, every appointment, every hard day. He became more than a canine. He was her tether to the real world. Jenna officially retired Ranger 6 weeks after the final court date. The department held a small ceremony, presented him with a custom collar and plaque, and toasted him with coffee, donuts, and more treats than any dog should eat in one sitting. He didn't understand the applause, but he understood the pats on the head, the scratch behind the ears, the voice that told him, "Good boy." Afterward, Jenna clipped off his service badge and whispered in his ear, "You're not a cop anymore, old man. You're family." By late spring, the Morrisons had settled into a new rhythm. Emma had begun attending a private school part-time, accompanied by a trauma specialist. She worked on art therapy, painting soft, dreamlike landscapes, and music. She liked to play the xylophone, tiny notes that seemed to light something inside her when words wouldn't come. One afternoon, while working in the garden, June heard the notes to "Hush, Little Baby" being played on a loop. She walked to the porch, tears already welling. Emma didn't speak. She just played the song again, over and over, while Ranger lay beside her, one paw draped across her foot. Jenna stayed close. She visited once a week, sometimes to bring supplies or share updates on other cold cases Ranger had helped solve over the years, but more often to check on him. He'd started slowing down, his gait a little stiffer, his eyes cloudy around the edges. He wasn't sick, just tired, worn from a life of service. One afternoon, Jenna brought him to the river near the edge of town, the same river he'd swum in as a rookie pup, chasing sticks and biting at the current. He walked in slowly now, letting the cool water rise to his shoulders. He didn't chase anything. He just stood there, tail swishing gently behind him, looking out across the water like he understood something no one else did. The town never forgot. Ranger was honored at the annual Founders' Day parade, riding in the back of a classic pickup truck decorated with flags and flowers. Kids clapped, grown men tipped their hats, and someone handed him a hot dog from a vendor stand. He took it politely, without breaking eye contact with the crowd. Jenna walked alongside the truck, grinning as she watched people point and whisper his name. "He found that girl," a woman said. "He's the one," her husband replied. A year after the rescue, June hosted a private dinner at the holiday home, just family, close friends, no cameras. Emma had baked cupcakes with her therapist's help. They weren't perfect, lopsided, over-frosted, but they were hers. She placed one in front of Ranger and said softly, "Happy Hero Day." He didn't eat it, but he wagged his tail, leaned forward, and licked the frosting from her finger. Later that night, as the guests left and the house fell quiet, Emma sat on the porch swing again. Ranger curled beside her. June brought out a photo album, old pictures of family cookouts, the girls on beach trips, Daniel smiling in the background before anyone knew. Emma didn't flinch when she saw his face. She didn't speak. She just turned the page. That was enough. Months passed. Then one morning, the call came. Jenna stood in her kitchen, cup of coffee in hand, Ranger snoozing at her feet. The vet's office. His blood work showed early signs of heart failure. Nothing urgent, no pain, just time. Time moving forward. She sat down on the floor beside him and cried for the first time in years. Ranger opened one eye, saw her, and gently pressed his forehead into her chest. His final days were peaceful. Jenna made sure of that, walks through his favorite woods, long naps in sun-drenched grass, steak for dinner, no rules. When it was time, she brought him to the hospital. June and Marcus were there. So was Emma. The room was quiet. Gentle music played in the background. A blanket lay across the floor. Ranger was calm, at peace. As the sedative began to take hold, Emma knelt beside him. "Thank you," she whispered. "For finding me." Jenna placed her hand on his chest. "I love you, partner." And just like that, he was gone. They buried Ranger at the northern edge of the forest, near the oak tree where it all began. No fanfare, just family. They placed his plaque beside a stone carved with his name, and Emma tied a pink ribbon around a small wooden cross. "Hero," it read. Beneath it, in her handwriting, "He never stopped searching." 6 months later, Jenna received a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a photo, a framed still from Ranger's vest cam, the moment he sat in the clearing with the pink ribbon at his paws. A note was attached: "Some dogs find bodies. Some dogs find bones, but he found the truth. Thank you for sharing him with the world." Jenna cried for the third time in her adult life, and she smiled because Ranger's story wasn't over. It was just beginning, etched into hearts, stitched into healing, and forever remembered by those who needed hope the most. Thank you for staying with us through this incredible journey. What would you have done in June's shoes? Do you think dogs like Ranger deserve official medals just like human officers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of animals, justice, and true heroes, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This story may have ended, but the mission continues.